She didn't mean for her CEO to find a list titled 15 Reasons Why I Hate Lucian Wexley. She certainly didn't mean to design an entire fashion collection based on AI-generated nudes of said CEO. But Celine Taylor was having a week. Celine Taylor, 26, junior designer at Wexley Fashion House and professional hide-and-seek champion when it came to avoiding her terrifying boss, was already hunched over her desk, furiously scribbling on a page titled 15 Reasons Why I Hate Lucian Wexley. 1. His stupid, perfect French accent sounds like velvet but uses it for evil. 2. Those cold grey eyes, like winter windows, no warmth. 3. The way he walks, owns every room like he invented floors. 4. His impossible standards, even Coco Chanel would fail his tests. 5. That perfectly styled hair, not one strand out of place, it's unnatural. She was halfway through number 6 when her office door burst open like a fashion emergency. Celine panicked, slammed the list shut and shoved it into her couture portfolio, the one she'd been bleeding into for 4 months. "Hi! Hello! You must be Jamie," she blurted, voice a little too chipper. Standing there, auburn bedhead, vintage tea under a blazer, combat boots, coffee in hand, and the chaotic energy of a human tumbler board. She was already halfway inside. "Hi, yes," Jamie Rodriguez reporting for duty. She dropped into a chair, totally unbothered by corporate norms. "This office is Pinterest core, and I am obsessed." Her eyes drifted to the folder. "What were you writing like your life depended on it? Memoirs? Villain origin story?" "Just portfolio stuff," Celine lied, hand instinctively guarding the list. "Uh-huh," Jamie smirked. "The kind of portfolio stuff that gets slammed face down like it contains war crimes?" Celine actually laughed, a rare thing lately. "I've been waiting months for help. I think I'm in love already." "Great." Jamie settled into the chair. "So what should I know about this place? Any survival tips for the new girl?" Before Celine could redirect, a voice sliced through the air like a freshly sharpened pair of shears. "Celine!" Enter Chad Wexley, manager, storming in like he was late to his own runway show. Powder blue suit, blonde blowout, attitude set to maximum. "Good morning, Chad," Celine said, recognizing the chaos in his eyes. Chad locked onto Jamie's outfit. "And who is this vision of anti-establishment?" "Jamie Rodriguez, assistant," Celine replied quickly. Chad circled Jamie like a fashion vulture. "Interesting look. Grunge meets corporate rebellion, I suppose. We'll discuss wardrobe later. Right now, meeting. Camille and Lucienne, conference room. Let's go." Celine's stomach dropped. "What meeting?" "New project. Also, Jamie," Chad added sweetly. "Try to look like you work in fashion, not at Coachella." As they walked, Celine whispered, "Quick primer. That's Chad Wexley, Lucian's cousin. Dramatic. Would absolutely throw you under the bus to save his suit." "Got it. Nepo baby. Weaponized ambition. And the name?" "Don't mention it." Jamie grinned. "I like you already." They reached the glass-walled conference room. Celine's pulse surged. At the head of the table, Camille Wexley, former supermodel, reigning queen. Next to her, checking his phone like he owned time itself, was Lucienne Wexley. Celine's breath caught. Again. It always did around him. Charcoal suit, angel-style dark hair, and those infamously unreadable grey eyes that managed to see everything, except her. "That's Lucienne," she whispered to Jamie. 8 months, 3 good mornings. Doesn't talk to anyone below executive level. Total ice prince. Jamie studied him, unbothered. He's giving main character energy, but forgot he's supposed to have a personality. Very handsome statue, no software installed. Celine bit her lip to keep from laughing. Lucian glanced up from his phone. His gaze swept the room with mechanical precision. It passed right over Celine, without pause. "Chad," he said, voice smooth and expensive, laced with just enough French. "We're expanding into men's fashion. I need a stylist to take point. Market research, concepts, full portfolio." Chad sat up, sensing opportunity. Celine could handle that. She's been working non-stop on her portfolio. Lucian's brow barely moved. "Which one is Celine?" The words landed like a slap. 8 months, elevators, eye contact, and still nothing. Celine raised her hand slowly, cheeks burning. "Here, sir." Lucienne turned to her, vaguely annoyed. Where did that voice come from? It wasn't really a question, but it made her feel smaller than ever. I should mention, I haven't worked on menswear before. My focus has always been... Stop, he said coldly. If you have any real creativity, this shouldn't be difficult. Are you saying you're not capable? The room fell silent. Camille watched like a bored aristocrat observing peasant drama. Chad leaned forward, already sharpening his knives. "We don't do insecurity here," Chad added silkily. "If this is too much, we'll find someone better suited." Tears threatened. This was supposed to be her couture moment, 4 months of work, buried under one sentence. "I can do it," she said, her voice barely audible. Lucien studied her a second longer, then looked back at his phone. 2 weeks for full collection. Show me initial concepts and sketches next week. Don't waste my time." "Meeting adjourned," Camille said, sealing the moment like a closing bell. As the room emptied, Celine sat frozen. Her collection pushed aside, her effort ignored. Now she was expected to perform a miracle on a deadline for someone who didn't even know her name. Jamie appeared beside her, hesitant. "Hey, are you okay?" "That seemed really harsh," Jamie said carefully. "I mean, I just got here, but that felt personal." "You don't understand the dynamics here." Celine wiped her tears. "Maybe not," Jamie said, "but look at it this way. Chad believes you can do this. He wouldn't have asked if he didn't think you could handle it." Celine nodded slowly, her confidence returning. "That's actually a good point. Time to prove him right then." Next morning, Celine opened her inbox and immediately felt her blood pressure spike. Subject: change of plans. "Darlings, feeling worse by the hour. Can't make it in today. Moving your concept presentation from next week to today. Celine, you'll present initial sketches to Lucienne at 2 p.m. instead of me. Try not to embarrass our department more than absolutely necessary. P.S. Jamie, water my desk succulent. It's more refined than most people in this building." "Oh no," Celine muttered, checking her watch. "I have to present in 4 hours and I have nothing ready." "What do you mean, nothing ready?" Jamie asked, looking at Celine's laptop. "You've been working on designs yesterday." Celine's face went pale. That's the problem." She opened her laptop reluctantly. "I may have been using AI-generated references of Lucian for my male model sketches." "Okay, so?" "So the AI automatically generated very detailed versions." Celine's cursor hovered over a folder labeled Reference, opened carefully. "The base images in my reference folder are comprehensive." Jamie leaned closer. "How comprehensive?" "Full artistic nude, Greek statue-level comprehensive." "Oh." Jamie smirked mischievously. Celine frantically clicked through her design folder. "My actual designs are clothed, but if I accidentally click on the reference folder during the presentation..." Jamie studied the screen. "Actually, these designs look amazing. And honestly, he might be flattered that you used him as inspiration. Shows you think he's aesthetically worthy of haute couture. Jamie, I cannot show my boss naked AI versions of himself." "Then just don't click the reference folder," Jamie said simply. "How hard can that be?" Famous last words. Celine stood outside Lucien's office, laptop bag in a death grip, repeating one lie: "You will not die of embarrassment." She knocked. "Come in," came the crisp, spine-straightening voice. She stepped inside and immediately regretted it. There he was, devastatingly handsome in that unfair way that made her forget basic motor functions. Perfect suit. Longer dark hair pulled back elegantly, catching the morning light, and those impossibly sharp cheekbones that could probably cut glass. "Miss Taylor..." "Celine, isn't it?" he said. "I understand you've prepared some designs. I hope you've managed to create something inspiring in such short notice," Lucian said, settling back in his chair. "I've heard you're quite talented." Celine's whole body flushed with warmth. Did he just compliment me? Is this real life? Where's the part where he destroys my confidence?" Yes, sir, she said, opening the laptop with trembling fingers. Lucienne gestured to the presentation setup, a sleek holographic display. Celine plugged her laptop into the wireless casting system. The first design materialized in the air between them, a male model in casual professional wear, face artistically blurred, rotating slowly in 3D. This is a transitional look, she explained, office to after hours. Lucienne studied the hologram with interest. Excellent proportions, though why blur the face? Celine's whole body flushed with warmth. You picked well, Lucienne said, his hand moving through his hair in that maddeningly attractive way. Having the right male proportions makes all the difference in fashion design. Because it's your bone structure, her brain screamed. She advanced to evening wear, still safe, face still blurred. Smart tailoring, Lucienne noted, standing up. May I see the technical details? He moved to her laptop, studying both the 3D projection and her design files on screen. Standing this close, his cologne was distracting, also on the list. The model you chose has exceptional build, he observed, examining the hologram from different angles. Where did you source these references? Celine's hands trembled on the trackpad. Well, I used AI-generated... Her nervous finger slipped. No! She accidentally clicked. Reference. Open carefully. Wait, don't. She lunged for the laptop. Too late. The hologram flickered, glitched, then, poof, life-sized, three-dimensional, fully nude. Lucienne, face crystal clear, no blur, materialized in glorious 4K detail, rotating slowly like a very expensive, very naked museum exhibit. The silence was deafening. Celine's soul left her body. Oh, Lucienne said calmly, turning from the laptop to study his naked holographic doppelganger with the same expression he might use to evaluate quarterly reports. That explains the bone structure. I can explain, Celine shrieked, frantically clicking to close the file. Very thorough research, he mused, as his 3D nude avatar completed another leisurely rotation, though the AI was rather generous with certain anatomical features. The hologram spun again, maximum definition, every single detail. Make it stop, Celine wailed, jabbing at her laptop like it was on fire. AI has come a long way, Lucienne said dryly. It's educational, she squeaked. Understanding proportion, musculature. The AI was generous with my abs, he observed clinically. Mine are more developed, yoga, fencing. Celine stared in horror. You're critiquing the accuracy of your own AI nudity. If you're using me as a template, he said with a smirk, shouldn't it be anatomically correct? Then something shifted. Lucienne's gaze moved from the hologram to her, slow, deliberate, appraising. His eyes lingered, and Celine felt heat creep up her neck as if he was somehow seeing through her clothes the way she'd been studying his AI form. Tell me, Miss Taylor, he said, voice lower now, that penetrating stare never wavering. Why choose me as your model? Celine tugged at her collar nervously, feeling exposed under his intense scrutiny. The truth. Months of quiet obsession, noticing every detail from his coffee habits to the way he moved like he owned gravity, was not an option. You were available, she offered weakly, still pulling at her jacket, in the sense that you exist. Here. Lucien's smile was slow and knowing. How practical of you. Let's see the rest of your collection, he said, preferably the versions with pants. You're not angry? You're not going to fire me, call HR? Lucien's lips curved slightly. For being meticulous? That would be poor management. But honestly, I'm intrigued, he said simply. Someone who creates anatomically accurate AI studies for fashion is either very creative and practical, or taking shortcuts. Lucienne paused, running his hand through those maddeningly long, dark locks, pushing them back. Or perhaps she has her own personal reasons. His tone was different, loaded. Celine's lips parted. Her breathing might have echoed through the entire room. She tried to smile as she asked, "Which one do you think I am?" Lucien never looked away. Something shifted inside him. "I'm still trying to decide." 20 minutes later, Lucien had turned out to be surprisingly focused and fair as a critic. He pushed Selene hard, questioned every design choice, but he listened, really listened with genuine interest, and that left Selene stunned. As she packed up her laptop, still haunted by what might be hiding in her folders, Lucien looked up. "Celine." "Yes, Mr. Wexley. If you ever need a male model again, maybe choose someone less recognizable." "Understood. Only the most ordinary men from now on." He paused at the door and added, "Good work. Your designs show real potential." Celine froze. In 8 months, this was the first compliment she'd ever heard from him. "Thank you, sir." "Lucien," he said in a low voice, "I think we've moved past formalities." Jamie looked up as Celine entered the office, immediately setting down her coffee. "How'd it go? Are we unemployed?" The file that should never be opened got opened. Celine collapsed into her chair with a dramatic sigh. Jamie's eyes widened in horror. "Oh no! How bad?" He saw everything that was never meant to be seen. Celine buried her face in her hands. "And?" Jamie leaned forward anxiously. He claimed his real body is more toned than what the AI generated. Celine's voice was muffled through her fingers. Jamie blinked slowly. "He what?" "He said his abs are more developed. Yoga and fencing, apparently." Celine finally looked up, still dazed. Jamie stared in complete disbelief, her mouth hanging open. "Yes. And then—" Celine trailed off, shaking her head. "He praised my work, said my designs show real potential, actually seemed impressed." Celine's voice held a note of wonder. Jamie leaned back in her chair, processing this information slowly. "Wait, let me get this straight. He saw himself naked in holographic detail, gave you fitness tips, and then complimented your talent." "Pretty much." Celine nodded, still looking stunned. Jamie set down her coffee cup with a decisive clink. "Celine?" "Yeah. I take it back. He's not scary. He's a complete enigma." Celine rubbed her temples. "Jamie, I think I need to completely reconsider everything I thought I knew about him." The next day, Celine was at her desk, still replaying yesterday's surreal presentation, when a delivery truck pulled up outside. 2 men wheeled in a tall, covered object. "Delivery for Chad Wexley's department," one of them announced. "Where do you want this?" Jamie signed for it, eyeing the mysterious package. "What do you think it is?" "Knowing Chad, probably something dramatic," Celine said, helping them position it in the design area. After the delivery men left, Jamie couldn't resist. She pulled off the cloth covering. "Oh my God," she breathed. "It's—" A pristine male mannequin stood before them, perfectly proportioned, angular features, the kind of specimen that belonged in a high-end boutique window. "Chad ordered a male model," Celine said, reading the attached note. "Says we need proper masculine representation for the menswear line." Jamie circled the mannequin appreciatively. "Well, hello there, handsome." "Very," she glanced down, meaningfully. Anatomically correct. Given yesterday's holographic incident, Celine felt her cheeks warm. "It's very detailed." "He needs a name," Jamie declared. "Something sophisticated. European." She paused, a wicked grin spreading across her face. "How about Pierre? You know, sophisticated, French, ridiculously good-looking but completely silent." Celine nearly choked. "Jamie, what? It's perfect." That evening, the building was silent. By 10 p.m., no one remained, but Celine had a collection to finish within the week. She'd been sketching for hours, erasing, redrawing. "Perfect design for the perfect man," she muttered to herself. Her eyes ached from exhaustion. "Get it together, Celine," she whispered, and reached into her bag, pulling out her eye cream and a red lipstick she always carried but never wore. She looked at it and laughed. As if I ever have time to look alluring. Then she smirked. Well, if I can't go to the party will come to me. She applied the red lipstick slowly. From her phone came "Love is a Bitch" by 2 Feet. The intoxicating melody made her rise gracefully to her feet. From Chad's drawer, the sacred one with the mini liquor bottle she'd always pretended not to see, she selected a tiny bottle of wine and another of martini. "Well, aren't you two just adorable?" she mused, grabbing them both. Sipping from the wine, she picked up a blue marker and sauntered toward Pierre. He looked especially dashing tonight in one of Lucien's signature suits. With a playful glint in her eye, she traced the marker along Pierre's sculpted cheekbones, then drew a line over his eyes, giving him a piercing blue gaze. She tossed her hair back, the music guiding her hips as she swayed around him. Meanwhile, several floors up, Lucien had returned to fetch a forgotten briefcase. Descending the staircase, he noticed the soft music and faint light spilling from below. He paused, eyes narrowing, then made his way toward the source. Selina had no idea she had an audience. She draped her arms around Pierre's neck and began to move with him, sensually and uninhibited. "I think you'd be different," she whispered. "You wouldn't look at me like I'm some puzzle to solve, like you're trying to decide whether I'm worth your time." With every sip of wine, she felt her inner femme fatale take over, and she was loving it. "Tell me, Pierre," she murmured, "what do those icy grey eyes hide, You know exactly how irresistible your proportions are. You arrogant thing." She circled him slowly, fingers dragging across his firm chest. "God, you look just like him," she breathed. "But you're missing something crucial. I can still breathe around you." Her fingers trailed down his torso, over his waist, brushing his legs. "My designs, they'd look divine on you, darling. They'd wrap around you like a second skin." In one fluid motion, she leaned in, lips hovering near his face. "And you'd be dying to wear them. You just don't know it yet. But I'm starting to get your attention, aren't I?" With slow, sultry steps, she backed away, still pointing at him. Her voice dropped into a deep, velvety murmur, laced with mischief. "You don't know it yet, Pierre, but you're going to go crazy for me. You'll be the one, breathless next time." In the shadows of the doorway, Lucien stood frozen, his lips curved in a barely there smile as he watched what might have been the most captivating performance of his life. That shy, blushing, stammering woman from meetings. This wasn't her. "What is this fire?" he thought. "I do like contradictions. Celine, God, you are something else." She stood facing Pierre, her back to the doorway, blissfully unaware she was being watched. She finished the last drops of wine and, with triumphant glee, tossed the tiny bottle right into the trash bin across the room. It landed with a perfect clink. She raised her arms in victory. Just as she went to open the martini, a voice behind her nearly made her jump out of her skin. "That was quite a performance, Miss Taylor." She spun around, eyes wide, heart racing. Lucien stood there in the shadows, but his signature cool stare, tonight, it was warmer. Celine swallowed hard. Those warm grey eyes now were travelling over her tousled hair, her generous miniskirt revealing her legs and her red lips. "Mr. Wexley, what are you doing here?" Her voice came out in a stammer, nothing like the seductress from moments ago. Lucien stepped closer. "So, the mannequin's name is Pierre. French?" Celine bit her lip. We wanted him to feel a little sophisticated. European flair, to match the collection, kind of." Lucien leaned casually against the wall. That arrogant posture of his was still intact, but his gaze was different. Softer, amused. "You work too hard, Celine. Doesn't leave much time for fun, does it?" She forced a nervous smile. "I really hope you've only been there for a few minutes." "Oh no," Lucien said with maddening calm. "I've been here a good 15, and I have to say, your dance was quite something. Very cinematic." Celine nearly died of embarrassment. She rushed to grab her coat and bag. "Well, I was just heading out. Don't let me keep you." "I could give you a ride home," Lucien offered, tilting his head slightly. Celine practically bolted for the exit. Looking into his eyes again was simply not an option. "Thank you, Mr. Wexley, but I can manage." As she hurried out of the building, cheeks flushed, breath uneven, one question echoed in her mind. Why the hell am I smiling? 10 days later. What had started as rough sketches in Celine's portfolio had transformed into an actual clothing line. The designs that Lucien had seen in holographic detail, thankfully the clothed versions, were now hanging on racks, ready for Wexley Fashion House's intimate client preview. The venue, a chic Soho gallery. The event, a private preview of Wexley's new men's collection. The pressure, immense. 100 carefully selected guests would witness what Chad dramatically called the debut of our rising star. That same week, Chad had made the announcement over coffee, waving it off like it was nothing, which, in Chad speak, meant prepare like your career depends on it, because it probably does. That Saturday evening, Celine stood in front of the mirror in her Brooklyn apartment, barely recognizing herself. The emerald silk dress hugged her in all the right places. Her hair, styled in soft vintage waves, framed her face with elegance. Her eyes sparkled under subtle liner. Her lips wore classic red. "I feel like I'm impersonating someone cooler," she whispered. Jamie stepped back, arms crossed, admiring her work. "Nope, this is you, the real you, the one you've been hiding under cardigans and self-doubt." Celine gave a nervous laugh. "What if I get there and everyone realizes I don't belong?" Jamie looked her dead in the eye. "Then they're idiots. You've earned that room, Celine. Let them try and keep up." The Soho Contemporary Gallery shimmered like a dream. Soft golden light fell over sleek displays of the new men's line. Fashion insiders sipped champagne and murmured critiques as they moved between pieces. Celine arrived arm in arm with Jamie, both breathless from the taxi ride and the moment itself. "Okay," Jamie whispered. "Deep breaths, big smiles, and if someone says post-minimalist deconstructionism, just nod and look intrigued." Celine managed a shaky laugh. "Everyone here looks like they were printed in Vogue." "That woman's shoes probably cost more than my college degree," Jamie added, staring wide-eyed at a passing guest. They didn't get far before Chad appeared, dressed like a 1940s movie star, all midnight blue, satin, and barely contained drama. "Darlings," he beamed, "you both look dangerously expensive tonight." "Thanks for including me," Celine said quietly. Chad gestured toward a sharp-eyed woman near a sculpture. "See her? That's Anna Fortuna, elite-style editor. One look from her can end careers. No pressure." Celine swallowed hard. "And speaking of perfect male specimens," Chad added with a wicked grin, "try not to confuse any of tonight's models with Pierre. I know how attached you've become." Celine nearly choked on her champagne. "Chad, what? I'm just saying, no slow dancing with the merchandise tonight." Meanwhile, across the room, Lucien was reviewing final notes when he saw her. For a moment, he forgot how to breathe. Celine moved through the gallery with calm confidence, her green eyes lit up, her posture regal. This wasn't the nervous junior designer who stammered through presentations. This was the woman he'd glimpsed that night. The one who moved with grace and spoke with fire when she thought no one was watching. The one who belonged. Beside Lucien, Camille appeared with a knowing smile. "She cleans up well, doesn't she?" Lucien blinked. "Who?" "Miss Taylor," Camille said, following his gaze. "Beautiful bone structure. Very Grace Kelly meets Dior, if Grace had better taste in textiles." Lucien said nothing, but Camille's smirk deepened. She could see it. He saw her now. Across the gallery, Celine had also spotted him. Lucien Wexley in a tuxedo should have been illegal. The cut of the jacket emphasized his shoulders. The white shirt made his eyes gleam like silver. His hair was styled with just enough imperfection to be devastating. "I need to sit down," Selene whispered. "There are no chairs, bestie," Jamie replied. "This is fashion. We suffer standing." "I can't breathe. Breathing is optional. Looking flawless is mandatory." Selene watched Lucien move through the crowd. Tonight, he looked different. Looser, lighter, almost like he belonged here more than he ever had behind his office desk. "He's smiling," she said, half in disbelief. "Lucien Wexley, smiling without irony. Call the press," Jamie said. "Maybe tuxedos are his final form." Then his eyes found Selene. In an instant, the crowd disappeared. His posture shifted, his expression changed. Polished charm replaced by something softer, rawer, surprise, recognition, and something that made her stomach flip. "I think," Jamie whispered, "you just broke your boss's brain." And she was right. Across the room, Lucien stood frozen, his conversation forgotten, eyes locked on Selena like she was the only person in the gallery. The show was minutes away when Jamie rushed behind the curtain, wide-eyed. "Emergency! Marco's white linen shirt, it's all wrong. Shoulders off, collars twisted, looks a size too small." Selene didn't respond. She just followed. Backstage, Marco Santangelo stood shirtless, gorgeous, golden, and clearly stressed. "Selene," he said in that velvety Italian accent, "you are my only hope. This shirt, it is a betrayal." She grabbed her pins and tape, already working. No chatter, just precision. Marco watched her closely. "You have the hands of a sculptor," he said. "Gentle, focused, beautiful. Do you always work like this?" "Hold still." "I'm trying," he murmured, leaning in. "But it's difficult with someone so captivating this close." She tightened the collar without flinching. "Mostly mannequins," she muttered, "and they don't talk this much." Across the room, Lucien saw them. Selene, elegant, intent, adjusting a half-naked model who was clearly enchanted. He stared, unreadable, then set down his glass and walked over. "Problem? Shirt needs reshaping," Selene said without looking up. "Could you hold this seam?" Lucien stepped in, rolling up his sleeves. Now he was on one side of Marco, Selene on the other, working inches apart. "Hold this tight while I pin," she instructed, their hands brushing as they adjusted the fabric. "You smell incredible, Bella," Marco whispered near Celine's ear. Lucien cleared his throat sharply from the other side. His grip on the fabric tightened noticeably. Selene leaned closer to fix the collar, pins between her lips, both hands full of fabric. "I need a pin," Lucien said quietly. Selene looked at him, hands occupied, and tilted her head toward him. "Take it," she whispered around the pin. Lucien's eyes dropped to her lips. Slowly, he reached up and carefully pulled the pin from between her lips, his fingers barely brushing her mouth. They both felt the electricity. "Such focus," Marco continued, oblivious, but Lucien couldn't look away from Celine's lips. "Almost done," Selene whispered, completely unaware of the effect she was having. She reached for another pin from Lucien, their hands working in perfect synchronization around the fabric. "There," she said finally, stepping back breathlessly. "Perfect fit." Marco buttoned the shirt. "You two work very well together, very intense." As Marco headed for the runway, silence settled between them. "You're very good in a crisis," Lucien said quietly, his voice rougher than usual. Selene looked up, finally noticing how close they still were. "It's just problem-solving." "Some collaborations," he said softly, his eyes still fixed on her lips, "are more memorable than others." The electricity between them was almost unbearable. Selene turned toward the sound. "We should go watch." Lucien didn't move. "We should." But neither of them did. They just stared at each other. For a moment, neither of them could move. The mini-show was a clear success. Celine stood near the edge of the room, watching as industry professionals gathered around Chad. Buyers asked questions and cameras flashed. Her collection had landed. Really landed. Then came the voice that made everyone stand a little straighter. Exceptional work. Anna Fortuna, stern, legendary, and smiling directly at Celine. The construction is precise, but more than that, there's story here, emotion, Anna continued. Celine managed a breath. Thank you. We'd like to feature it in our spring issue. You'll hear from us, Anna said before drifting away. Jamie rushed over like a tornado with 2 champagne glasses. You just impressed Anna Fortuna. I think that counts as global victory. Celine flushed, tucking a loose curl behind her ear. I don't even remember breathing. You didn't, but you looked like a queen anyway, Jamie said, handing her the glass with a proud grin. Celine's eyes drifted across the crowd, just in time to meet Lucien's. He was deep in conversation, surrounded by people, but his attention kept returning to her. Celine, Lucien said, approaching them, exceptional work tonight. Thank you, Mr. Wexley, Celine replied. Lucien paused. Call me Lucien. I believe we've earned first names by now. Celine smiled slightly. All right then. Thank you, Lucien. Lucien nodded toward the crowd. The response tonight was better than we expected. That's entirely thanks to you. Celine shook her head modestly. It was a team effort. We all did this together. Lucien studied her for a moment, then spoke quieter. Would you like to step outside for a moment? The terrace has a decent view. Before she could answer, Marco appeared. Still glowing from the show, he flashed a smile. Celine, Bella, some of us are heading to a club downtown. After party for the models and a few editors. Come on, come with me. It was clear he meant her, just her. Lucien didn't flinch. Actually, he said smoothly, we're celebrating with the team upstairs. Quieter. Closer. Marco's expression shifted, just slightly. He nodded. Understood. Another time, perhaps? As he left, Celine turned. There's a rooftop party? Lucien offered his arm. There is now. The shift from company showcase to rooftop gathering had been seamless, classic Wexley precision. Now, Celine stood on one of Manhattan's most exclusive terraces, champagne in hand, city lights glittering around her. This is surreal, she murmured to Jamie. 2 hours ago, I was pinning a crooked shoulder seam. Jamie handed her a glass. Cheers to your main character arc. Then Celine spotted him across the terrace, surrounded by 3 stunning women, a brunette, a blonde, and a redhead. They were laughing like he'd just said the funniest thing in Europe. Look at that smile, Celine breathed. 8 months I've worked for him, and the most enthusiasm I got was not actively offensive, but put him next to women with Vogue bone structure, and suddenly he's Mr. Charisma. Jamie sipped her drink. You're watching your boss flirt like it's an Olympic sport. Before Jamie could respond, familiar footsteps approached. Darlings, Chad announced, appearing beside them with champagne and confusion etched across his features. Can someone explain when exactly we developed a tradition of rooftop celebrations? Jamie raised an eyebrow. This wasn't planned? Exactly, Chad exclaimed. I manage Lucien's calendar like it's a nuclear launch protocol, and this soirée was absolutely not on the manifest. This is as spontaneous as a royal wedding. He narrowed his eyes suspiciously. So, what triggered this sudden burst of festive spirit in my famously antisocial cousin? Celine felt a flush rise in her cheeks. Everything to your satisfaction, came a familiar voice behind them. They turned to find Lucien approaching, looking impeccably composed, despite apparently organizing an entire rooftop event in 20 minutes. Oh, absolutely magical, Chad replied with saccharine sweetness, though I'm fascinated by tonight's guest list. Very selective. Lucien's jaw tightened. Is there a problem with the arrangements? Not a problem exactly, Chad said, clearly enjoying himself. Just curious about the guest list. I couldn't help but notice certain charming Italian gentlemen didn't make the cut. Marco had other commitments, Lucian said stiffly. Did he? Because he seemed quite available and very eager to celebrate, Chad smiled wickedly. Jamie watched this like premium entertainment. Celine saw her moment. You know, she said lightly, I feel bad Marco couldn't make it. He really was sweet tonight. Such a charmer. Oh, absolutely, Chad chimed in. Quite the charmer. Honestly, Celine continued, eyes on Lucian, he was the star of the show. Everyone seemed pretty taken with him. Lucien's hands flexed slightly. I'm sure he'll find other ways to occupy his evening. Chad froze, catching Celine's tone. Celine, Marco is, well, he's kind of mine. Easy there, Tiger. Celine blinked innocently. Oh, Chad, I think you might be out of luck. He's definitely straight. Silence dropped. Lucien looked between them, a flicker of panic in his eyes. Actually, he said quickly, in this industry, preferences can be fluid. Don't be so sure about anyone's orientation. Chad looked like he'd won a prize. Jamie's mouth fell open. Excuse me, Lucien said tightly. I should check on the other guests. Chad watched him go, sipping his champagne like it was tea. He shot Selene a meaningful glance. Well, he said satisfied, that explains a lot. He spotted someone across the terrace. Ladies, enjoy your evening. I've got follow-up mischief to attend to. And with a smirk, he was gone. Jamie turned to Celine, wide-eyed. Bestie, the boss was jealous. You think? No, I know. Did you see his face when you mentioned Marco? That wasn't restraint. That was combustion. Celine blinked, still processing. He walked away like the floor was on fire, Jamie added. Lucian Wexley has it bad. Celine said nothing, but her pulse answered for her. As if summoned by their conversation, Lucien reappeared, composed but focused. Celine, Jamie. Jamie saw her cue immediately. I should reapply lipstick or something. She slipped away with a grin. Celine and Lucien were alone at the railing now, city lights stretching before them. Enjoying the view? He asked, voice softer than usual. It's unreal, she said. I keep expecting someone to say I don't belong here. Lucien stepped closer. You underestimate yourself. 8 months of wrinkled cardigans might have influenced that impression. He studied her face in the city lights. Your dress is striking, and the color brings out your eyes. But then again, he paused. I may have been late to notice you, but now I see you everywhere. Celine's breath caught. Everywhere. In the designs, in the way you work, even in empty conference rooms when you're not there. His voice dropped lower. It's distracting. The admission hung between them like electricity. I should have noticed your talent sooner, he said quietly, but I was focused on other things. Celine felt her heart racing. What changed? Lucien turned back to her, his grey eyes intense. You did. Tonight, I saw who you really are. Not the nervous designer hiding behind presentations, but... He paused. The woman who dances alone and creates beauty and isn't afraid to fight for what she believes in. The silence stretched, charged with everything unsaid. Thank you, Celine. For tonight. For everything. When he walked beside her back into the party, the space between them had disappeared entirely. Monday morning at Wexley Fashion House started with Jamie nearly falling out of her chair. Okay, what was that? She asked, eyes wide as Lucien disappeared down the hall. Celine looked up from her fabric swatches, trying not to smile. What do you mean? I mean, your boss just said, Good morning, Celine, like he was auditioning for romance. That man used your name. With warmth. Before Celine could respond, Chad swept into the office with a sour expression. Ladies, we have a situation, he said. Lucien has entered obsessive management mode. He's hovering over timelines, checking everything twice, asking me logistical questions. Jamie raised a brow. He's micromanaging? Like a couture-obsessed hawk, Chad groaned. If he mentions fabric allocation one more time, I'm faking a sabbatical. Celine bit her lip, hiding the flutter in her chest. But, Chad added dramatically, if it gets us better performance reviews, I suppose I'll survive. 2 weeks later. The studio was a whirlwind of activity. With 2 months until the full show, Celine practically lived there. Evening wear, Chad said, eyeing a midnight blue jacket. Gorgeous cut. This timeline should have killed us, but it's actually working. Lucien still hovering? Jamie asked. Constantly, Chad muttered. Annoying, but oddly supportive. I'm suspicious. That afternoon, in Camille's office, the tension was sharper than usual. Camille tapped her manicured fingers on the glass desk. The numbers don't lie, Lucien. We're losing ground to younger brands. Lucien studied the report. Chasing trends isn't who we are. Wexley stands for quality. Quality doesn't matter if no one's buying, she replied coolly. We need to modernize. You mean replicate what others are doing? I mean survive, Camille said sharply. Your father took risks, but calculated ones. He knew when to pivot. Lucien bristled at the familiar comparison. The men's line is gaining traction, he countered. Celine's work is strong. Camille gave a too smooth smile. She's talented, but also very earnest. Small town. That naivety doesn't always translate to sophistication. She's authentic. That's what people connect with. Maybe, Camille said casually, just make sure your personal interest isn't clouding your judgment. Lucien's expression cooled. Meaning? I've seen how you look at her, mon chéri. She's sweet, but a delicate pause. Not exactly Wexley material. Her tone was casual. The message wasn't. Lucien didn't respond, but the hit landed. She'd said similar things before, always with a smile, always dressed as concern. As Camille moved on to fall strategy, Lucien heard nothing, just her voice echoing, not your world. And the worst part? A tiny part of him still believed her. In his Wexley office, Lucien sat scrolling through industry coverage of the new men's line. The collection had earned solid reviews, positive feedback, promising sales, even fashion bloggers praising it as fresh, masculine elegance. And then he saw it. A post from Fashion Truth Teller, an anonymous but influential account known for savage critiques. Wexley's new men's line, when small-town mediocrity meets luxury pricing. Basic, uninspired. Looks like Target trying to play dress-up at Fashion Week. Embarrassing for a house like Wexley. Wexley fail. Hundreds of comments followed, some defending, others piling on. His phone buzzed with messages. Brutal post. Hope you're okay. Wait, does the designer really have no formal training? Lucien locked his phone and pressed his fingers to his temples. The numbers were good. The response had been strong. But all he could hear was Camille's voice. Small town, naive, not sophisticated enough. Had he let feelings cloud his judgment? Was Celine ready? Was he? By the time he left for the night, confidence had drained into quiet doubt. He had no way of knowing that tomorrow Celine would walk into his office, bright-eyed and brilliant, completely unaware she was about to crash straight into the storm gathering behind his polished composure. Celine knocked on Lucien's office door with more confidence than she'd felt in months. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of productivity and growing excitement about the collection. More importantly, her working relationship with Lucien had evolved into something warmer, more collaborative. "Come in," came his voice from inside. She entered to find him at his desk, surrounded by papers and looking uncharacteristically tense. Dark circles under his eyes suggested he hadn't slept well, and his usual impeccable appearance seemed slightly rumpled. "Good morning," she said brightly, carrying her sketchpad and a folder of inspiration images. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." Lucien looked up from his laptop, and something in his expression made her pause. The warmth she'd grown accustomed to over the past weeks was nowhere to be found. Instead, his grey eyes held the same cold distance she remembered from her first months at the company. "What do you need, Miss Taylor?" Miss Taylor, not Celine. Her stomach dropped slightly, but she pressed forward. "I had an idea for the collection that I wanted to run by you. I was thinking about the evening wear section, and I realized we could—" "The collection is fine as it is," Lucien interrupted, his voice clipped. "We're 2 months out from the show. This isn't the time for major changes." "But this wouldn't be a major change," Celine said, her enthusiasm undimmed. "It's more of an enhancement. I was looking at the dinner jacket designs, and I thought about incorporating this subtle geometric embroidery pattern that would catch the light during the runway show. It would add visual interest without compromising the clean lines and geometric embroidery." Lucien's tone was flat, dismissive. "How exactly do you think that aligns with our brand aesthetic?" The question hit her like a slap. She blinked, trying to process the sudden shift in his demeanor. Well, it would be very subtle, just enough to add texture and movement. The craftsmanship would be impeccable, and it would show our attention to detail." "Celine." Lucien set down his pen and looked at her with an expression that made her feel like a child who'd interrupted an important adult conversation. "Do you have any formal training in luxury menswear design?" No, but do you have experience working with the level of clientele who purchase our products?" "Not directly, but I've been studying." "Have you ever attended a luxury menswear show? Do you understand the expectations of buyers who spend thousands of dollars on a single piece?" Each question felt like a physical blow. Celine clutched her sketchpad tighter, confusion and hurt warring in her chest. "Lucien, I don't understand. Yesterday you said the collection was—" "Yesterday I was being polite." His voice was ice-cold, professional in the cruelest possible way. "The truth is, Miss Taylor, that while your enthusiasm is admirable, this is a luxury fashion house. Our clients expect sophistication, refinement, and an understanding of what constitutes true elegance. Geometric embroidery suggests a fundamental misunderstanding of our brand identity." Celine felt tears prick at her eyes, though she fought desperately to keep them from falling. "I was just trying to—" "You were trying to fix something that isn't broken. The collection works because it's simple and clean. Adding unnecessary embellishments because you think they'll be interesting shows exactly the kind of amateur thinking that—" He stopped himself, but the damage was done. "Amateur thinking," Celine repeated quietly. Lucien's jaw tightened, but he didn't soften his position. "I'm simply saying that there's a difference between creativity and commercial viability, between personal expression and professional responsibility." The tears were coming now, despite her best efforts. Celine felt like she was drowning in shame and confusion. This was the same man who'd complimented her work, who'd looked at her with warmth and something deeper during their rooftop conversation. "I see," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry for wasting your time with my amateur ideas." "Miss Taylor, no, you're absolutely right, sir. I clearly don't understand luxury fashion or sophistication or what your clients expect." She backed toward the door, clutching her materials to her chest like armor. "I won't bother you with any more suggestions." "Celine, wait!" But she was already fleeing, her vision blurred with tears, and her heart shattered into pieces she wasn't sure she'd ever be able to put back together. In her haste to escape, she didn't notice that her portfolio had slipped from her arms and landed on the floor beside Lucien's desk, its contents scattered and forgotten in her rush to get away from the man who'd just destroyed her confidence with surgical precision. Lucien stared at the door Selina had just fled through, his stomach tight with regret. What the hell had he done? Her face, confused, hurt, on the verge of tears, was etched into his mind. He'd watched her confidence collapse and let it happen, all because some anonymous blogger had trashed the collection, because his mother had planted just enough doubt to shake him. He stood, ready to chase after her, apologize, fix it. Then he saw the portfolio on the floor, sketches, fabric swatches, notes, all scattered. He knelt to gather them, thinking maybe returning them could be his excuse to make things right. But as he reached for the last papers, something caught his eye. 25 Reasons Why I Hate Lucian Wexley. Neat handwriting, a numbered list, and a gut punch with every line. 1. His stupid, perfect French accent makes cruelty sound elegant. 3. How he makes me invisible. 8 months doesn't know my name. 6. How he saves actual personality for genetic lottery winners. 8. Makes employees feel like clearance merchandise. Lucian sank back in his chair. She hated him, not just difficult to work with hate, real hate, documented, deliberate, deeply felt. Every moment he'd thought was something more. Every glance, every conversation that rooftop night meant nothing. It had all been one-sided. He let the papers fall back into her portfolio, each line still ringing in his head. He had been falling for someone who had been quietly, precisely cataloguing why he was unbearable. And the worst part? After this, she probably had 25 more to add. That night, Selina sat alone in her apartment, rereading the job interview invitation from Sterling and Associates. Dear Ms. Taylor, your recent work on the Wexley men's collection has come to our attention, and we are impressed by your innovative approach to luxury menswear design. Sterling and Associates would like to invite you to discuss potential opportunities within our design team. 3 days ago, she would have been thrilled. But that was before Lucian Wexley disaster. Before the look in Lucian's eyes turned cold, before he used the words amateur thinking. She closed the laptop, took a breath, then opened it again and began typing. Thank you. I'd love to schedule a time to talk. As she hit send, a quiet part of her still hoped he'd reach out, but her phone stayed silent. Same night, Lucien sat in his penthouse study, the Manhattan skyline glittering beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. The portfolio lay open on his desk, Celine's hate list spread before him like evidence of his own failures. He'd read it 3 times. 25 carefully catalogued reasons why she despised him, written in precise handwriting with analytical detail that suggested months of accumulated resentment. Each item reflected his worst behaviors. Had he really been so cold, so dismissive? Lucien was about to close the portfolio when something caught his eye. Writing on the back of the last page, smaller text, almost like an afterthought. He flipped the paper over and felt his world tilt sideways. Note: if I'm still reading this list, maybe I'm trying to convince myself that everything I think about him is wrong, because I don't understand why my heart races when I see him, or why I try so hard to get him to notice me despite all this supposed hatred. Maybe I don't hate him at all. Maybe I'm just scared of how much I don't hate him. Lucien stared at the words, reading them again and again. Why my heart races when I see him, why I try so hard to get him to notice me. Maybe I don't hate him at all. She didn't hate him. She was afraid of not hating him, afraid of wanting something she didn't think she should. The tension, the glances, the energy between them. It hadn't been one-sided. He hadn't imagined it. And on Saturday morning, he had weaponized every fear she'd ever had about him. Selina hadn't been wrong about his flaws, but she'd also seen more, and despite everything, she'd let herself hope. He stood and walked to the window, the city sprawling beneath him like a promise. For the first time in days, a smile pulled at his mouth. Lucien wasn't a man who formed connections easily. His world was full of stunning women, models, socialites, daughters of family friends, all perfectly beautiful, perfectly appropriate, perfectly empty. But this small-town designer who danced with mannequins and believed fashion could change the world, who tried so hard to get him to notice her while cataloguing reasons why she shouldn't want him to, she had gotten under his skin like no one else ever had. He would fix this. He would apologize, explain, show her that Saturday morning had been his fears talking, not his true feelings about her work. On Monday morning, he would tell her the truth, that he'd been falling for her too. Lucien arrived early on Monday morning, Celine's portfolio under his arm, ready to apologize. But when he opened the studio door, she wasn't there. Jamie looked up from her desk. She called in sick, she said simply. Lucien froze. Celine had never missed a day of work. He placed the portfolio gently on her desk, then turned and left, his words of apology still unspoken. That morning, Celine walked into the meeting with Sterling and associates still carrying the weight of Saturday's heartbreak like an invisible bruise. The offices were sleek, modern, full of energy, everything she'd imagined from a rising fashion powerhouse. Miranda Sterling got right to the point. "We want you to lead our menswear division. Full creative control, generous budget, and double your current salary." It was the kind of offer that changed careers, everything Celine had dreamed of. "That's incredible," she said carefully. "We'd support a smooth transition," Miranda added. "But don't let misplaced loyalty keep you from what you've earned." Celine smiled, though her chest felt tight. "I just need some time to think about it." "Of course, but don't take too long." As Celine left the building and stepped into the street, her thoughts were a storm. The opportunity was everything she'd wanted, except it also meant leaving Lucien. And for reasons she didn't want to admit, that thought hurt more than it should. The other morning, Celine had returned to work with her usual quiet efficiency, avoiding eye contact, her expression unreadable. Lucien noticed, but said nothing. Yet, "I want Celine to come with me to the Madison Creative meeting today," Lucien announced to Chad, who was reviewing the day's schedule. Chad raised an eyebrow. "For the advertising campaign? Shouldn't that be a senior-level discussion? I could accompany you instead." "No. She designed the collection. She should be part of presenting it." "Luce, she's barely spoken to anyone since Monday. Are you sure she's ready for a client presentation?" Lucien's jaw tightened. This was exactly why he needed to fix things with Celine. "She'll be ready. Please arrange for a car." The truth was, he wanted time alone with her. The advertising meeting was just an excuse to get her away from the office, away from watching eyes, somewhere they could finally talk. Chad studied his cousin's face with knowing eyes. "Luce, this isn't really about the presentation, is it?" "Just arrange the car, Chad." 20 minutes later, Lucien knocked on the design studio door. Jamie looked up with barely concealed surprise. "Mr. Wexley? Is Celine available? We have the Madison Creative meeting this morning." She didn't mention any meeting. "I'd like her to present her collection to the advertising team. Could you let her know we leave in 10 minutes? When Celine emerged from the back office, her expression was carefully neutral. "You want me to come to the client meeting?" "It's your collection," Lucien said simply. "You should present it." Something flickered across her face, surprise, maybe even pleasure, before the professional mask slipped back into place. "Of course, Mr. Wexley. I'll get my portfolio." The silence in the car was thick enough to cut with fabric scissors. Celine stared out the window at Manhattan's morning traffic, while Lucien sat beside her, clearly searching for words, to bridge the chasm that had opened between them since Saturday. "How are you feeling today?" he asked finally, his voice carefully neutral. "Better?" "Fine. Thank you," Celine replied without turning from the window. "Have you prepared what you want to tell the advertising team about the collection's inspiration?" "I'll follow your lead, Mr. Wexley." The formal address hit him like a slap. After everything, they were back to Sir and Mr. Wexley. "You look nice today," he tried, genuinely meaning it. She'd chosen a navy dress that brought out her eyes, her hair pulled back in a way that suggested she was all business. "Thank you." Each polite, distant response felt like another wall going up between them. Lucien found himself missing her nervous chatter, her unconscious habit of covering her mouth when surprised, even her panicked rambling about AI research. This professional politeness was somehow worse than her original fear of him. On the 36th floor of the glass-wrapped Madison Tower, the offices of Madison Creative buzzed with curated, cool and high-stakes branding energy. The advertising meeting was everything Celine had expected. Sleek conference room, creative types in perfectly casual designer clothes, presentations full of buzzwords like brand narrative and consumer engagement. Lucien was in his element, discussing market positioning and demographic targeting with the kind of authority that reminded everyone why Wexley Fashion House was industry royalty. Celine sat quietly beside him, contributing nothing beyond polite nods, and the occasional, "That sounds interesting," when directly addressed. The collection was her baby, her vision brought to life, but she felt like a spectator at her own success story. When the creative director asked about the inspiration behind the masculine elegance theme, Lucien glanced at her expectantly. "My designer Celine Taylor can speak to that better than I can," he said. All eyes turned to Celine. She could feel Lucien's encouraging gaze, could sense his hope that she'd engage, contribute, show them the passionate designer he'd glimpsed during their collaboration. It's about modern men who need versatility," she said quietly, "professional but approachable." The answer was technically correct and completely soulless. The creative director nodded politely and turned back to Lucien for the real discussion. As they stepped into the elevator from the 36th floor, the doors closed behind them with a soft ding, leaving them alone in the small mirrored space. "Why didn't you contribute anything in there?" Lucien asked, his frustration finally showing. "That was your collection," they were discussing. Celine kept her eyes on the floor, numbers counting down. "I'm a small-town, visionless girl. I didn't think I'd have much to contribute." "I understand you're upset with me," Lucien said, his voice gaining an edge, "but you can't take that into a professional meeting like this." "This is my amateur side again," she replied, the words dripping with bitter irony. "You were right about me, Mr. Wexley." The formal address, again, wielded like a weapon. Lucien felt his patience snap. "Stop calling me that, and stop putting words in my—" His phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it automatically, then felt his blood turn to ice. "Heard our little designer had a meeting at Sterling yesterday. Thought you should know. Chad." Lucien's head snapped up, his grey eyes now blazing with something that wasn't frustration anymore. "What did you do yesterday?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Celine's stomach dropped. "What?" "Sterling and Associates. What did you do yesterday, Celine?" Before she could answer, the elevator shuddered violently to a stop between floors. The lights flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. The space was plunged into near total darkness. They were trapped. Lucien pressed the emergency call button. A crackled voice came through. "This is Lucien Wexley. We're trapped in elevator bank C between floors." "What? 30 minutes?" Lucien said sharply. He turned to Celine and saw it. She was pressed against the wall, eyes wide. Her breathing was rapid and shallow. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't breathe." Lucien stepped forward, voice soft. "Celine, look at me." She shook her head, the mirrored walls closing in around her. "Small spaces, I can't." "Okay," he said gently. "Come sit down with me." "I can't." "Yes, you can. I'm right here." He guided her to the floor, back against the wall beside him. "Don't look at the walls. Just look at me." Her eyes met his, wide and terrified. "Good. Now breathe with me. In through your nose and out through your mouth." She tried. Her breath caught. Lucien reached up and gently brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "You're safe. I promise." Her body trembled as she leaned into his touch. "I'm sorry. This is embarrassing. Don't apologize." His hand moved gently through her hair. "You're doing great." Her breathing began to steady, But Lucien didn't move away. His fingers lingered at her cheek. "Better now?" She nodded slightly. In the dim lighting, her face just inches from his, he could see every flicker of emotion in her green eyes. She wasn't pulling away. "Celine," he said quietly, his hand still cupping her cheek. Their eyes locked. Celine nodded faintly. "I'm okay, Lucien." But Lucien didn't move away. His fingers traced gently along the curve of her jaw, then upward, brushing across her lips, feather-light. She stilled beneath his touch. His eyes searched hers for a moment longer, something vulnerable and unspoken flickering there. Then, with aching slowness, he leaned in. His mouth met hers in a kiss that was soft, tentative at first, reverent. Her lips parted under his, and she kissed him back, hesitant for a beat, then with growing need. Her hands slid up to his chest, fingers twisting lightly in his shirt as she leaned into him. The kiss deepened, all heat and release. Weeks of tension, confusion, and unspoken feelings poured into it. Lucien pulled her into his lap, his hands at her waist, her back, as their bodies closed the distance between them. She arched into him slightly, her fingers tightening in his hair as his mouth found the curve where her neck met her shoulder. Lucien let out a low, nearly soundless breath against her skin. He kissed her jaw, the line of her throat. Her breath hitched when their lips met once more, lost in each other's breath, in the darkness, in the suspended moment between floors. Suddenly, the elevator lurched back to life with a mechanical groan. The lights blazed on without warning, flooding them in harsh, fluorescent reality. They sprang apart instantly, both scrambling to their feet as the spell shattered around them. Celine's hair was mussed, her lips swollen, and Lucien's shirt was wrinkled where her hands had clutched it. Neither could look directly at the other. Celine pressed her hand to her lips, staring at the floor numbers as they descended. Lucien straightened his tie, his breathing still uneven. The silence stretched between them, loaded with everything that had just happened, and everything they couldn't take back. "Celine," he said finally, his voice rough. She turned to look at him then, her green eyes still dark with the aftermath of their kiss, her hand still touching her lips. "This thing between us," he said quietly, his hand finding hers. "This attraction we keep pretending doesn't exist." His grey eyes held hers intensely. "We can't ignore it anymore." The ride back from the Madison Creative meeting was wrapped in silence. Celine sat staring out the tinted window, hands clasped tightly in her lap, heart still racing from everything that had happened in the elevator. Lucien sat beside her, quiet, his jaw tight. The tension wasn't anger anymore, it was something else, thick with everything unsaid, everything still too new to name. The city passed in a blur of glass and light, and then, just as they were a block from the Wexley building, Lucien reached over. His hand brushed hers gently, then closed around it. Celine's breath caught. She looked at him. He didn't smile, just held her gaze with those stormy grey eyes. "Let's not make things obvious at work," he said quietly. "But let me take you to dinner tonight." She blinked, the words almost surreal. Lucien Wexley, asking her out. After everything. "Okay," she whispered. Her voice shook slightly, but her hand didn't move. That afternoon at Wexley Fashion House, executive floor, Lucien stepped into the executive lounge to grab the file he'd left earlier. From the hallway, he paused. Camille's voice floated through the cracked door of her private office, light and melodic, coated with polite charm. "Oh, I'd love that. Yes, bring Sophie to dinner. Thursday works perfectly. And Lucien will be there too, of course. It's been too long since we had a proper catch-up." Lucien's brows pulled together. "Sophie?" He waited until he heard Camille hang up before stepping into the room. "Sophie Sterling. Really?" he said flatly. Camille looked up with a smile, completely unfazed. Such a sweet girl, Camille replied with a meaningful look. Though I suppose you'd know that better than most, given your history. She smiled smoothly. And Miranda is delightful once you get past that ghastly sense of humor. Lucienne didn't sit. When did you and Miranda Sterling become so chatty? Weren't the Sterlings our biggest competitors 6 months ago? Camille waved a hand delicately. Rivals, yes. Enemies, never. The market shifts. Alliances evolve. He narrowed his eyes. You invited them to dinner? She simply smiled, smoothing a non-existent wrinkle from her silk blouse. What are you playing at? Lucien, she said sweetly. It's just dinner, nothing more. Camille sighed, placing her porcelain teacup gently back on its saucer. Oh, Lucien, she's a sweet, beautiful girl, exceptionally suitable. Miranda is a refined woman and the family is strong. Only a fool wouldn't see the potential in that alliance. He stared at her for a long moment, then something clicked. His voice dropped. No, you didn't. He took a step back. The interview, at Sterling, with Celine. That was you, wasn't it? Camille didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her smile was maddeningly serene. Unbelievable, Lucien muttered, raking a hand through his hair. You tested her. Still no reply. Just that smooth, infuriating smile. You sent her a job offer to see if she'd leave Wexley Fashion House, leave me. Camille's voice was soft, measured. I needed to know if she could be tempted by something shinier, if she was just a distraction or something more dangerous. Lucien's jaw clenched. You crossed a line. Camille rose gracefully, walking toward him. You may not see it yet, mon chéri, but I'm protecting our legacy. You were not raised to trade power for sentiment. When I married your father, love was secondary. He was a Wexley, honorable, responsible, strong. Love was a luxury. Still is. She stepped closer, meeting his eyes. Celine may be talented, but she doesn't understand power. If you marry Sophia Sterling, no. Lucien stepped back sharply. That's not happening. Don't waste your breath. This isn't fantasy, Camille said, still composed. It's a solution. We both know the financial reality. Marrying Sophia would secure our future. Lucien's face twisted with disgust. You orchestrated that job offer to Celine through Sterling, then invited them to dinner. You're playing chess with people's lives. Camille gave a small shrug. If she truly cared about you, she wouldn't have entertained the offer. But I watched her. She may be our weakness. Lucien turned away, jaw clenched. Celine is not weak, you just don't have a heart. By the time Selene got home and changed into something simple but elegant, her nerves were in overdrive. She checked her phone again. Still no call. Just before 7, her screen lit up with a message. Lucien, would you mind coming to my place instead? It'll be easier. Less attention. Celine stared at the screen. Easier. Less attention. Something about the words left a hollow feeling in her chest. Was he embarrassed to be seen with her? Was this not a real date? Was she just a complication he preferred to keep private? She sank onto the couch, phone still in hand. The excitement that had been bubbling inside her all afternoon slowly drained away. Jamie, balancing a bowl of pasta, walked in from the kitchen. You look like someone just cancelled on you. Celine hesitated. He didn't cancel. He just changed the plan. Wants me to come to his place instead. Jamie frowned. He's Lucien Wexley. Maybe he's just trying to avoid press. You know how those photos spread like wildfire. I know. Celine stared at her lap. It just doesn't feel great. Like he doesn't want to be seen with me in public. Jamie sat beside her. Or maybe he just doesn't want to risk something special getting picked apart by tabloids before it even has a chance. Give him the benefit of the doubt. Everything's new, and he's not exactly the king of emotional transparency. Celine smiled faintly. You're right. But I think I'm going to stay in tonight. Celine was having tea with Jamie when the knock came. Jamie had insisted on staying with her that evening. Just in case you don't want to be alone, she'd said. Neither of them had been expecting company. Celine opened the door and froze. Leaning casually against the doorframe, one hand braced on the wood, Lucien stood with the effortless elegance only he could carry. In his other hand, a bottle of deep red wine and a stunning bouquet of white lilies. He held her gaze with those storm-grey eyes and said softly, "You didn't come, so I did." "Is this a bad time?" Celine blinked, startled. Jamie's here actually, but..." Before she could finish, Jamie was already grabbing her bag from the chair by the door. "I was heading out anyway," she said with a teasing glance. "See you at work, Celine. Good evening, Mr. Wexley." She gave Lucien a subtle wink as she stepped out. Lucien stepped inside as Celine closed the door. As he removed his grey cashmere coat, he glanced around the space, taking it in. "So this is your place," he said. "It feels warm." "Real." Celine smiled shyly. "It's small, but it suits me." She smelled the lilies, smiling, and flushed a little. "They're so beautiful. Thank you." She hurried off to find a vase, her nerves barely contained. Lucien watched her with quiet amusement as he settled into the couch like he belonged there. When she returned, he took the glasses from her and poured the wine. "I didn't bring dinner," she admitted with a laugh. "Maybe we should order something." "Pizza," he said without hesitation. Celine raised her brows. "Pizza? I thought you'd want something more sophisticated." Lucien laughed. "Ribs and truffle oil. Order it that way and it becomes haute cuisine." They sat cross-legged on the couch, sipping wine while waiting for their food. Conversation flowed more easily than either had expected. Music, books, childhood dreams. Celine told him about sketching dresses since she was 10, about growing up in a house where no one quite understood her obsession with texture and silhouette. Lucien admitted almost shyly that he'd once wanted to be an architect. But the family business needed a Wexley at the helm, so here I am. Later, when the last slice of pizza was gone and the wine nearly finished, Celine curled into his lap, without quite meaning to. He stroked her hair absent-mindedly, her head resting on his chest. This man, she thought, watching the way his mouth softened when he spoke, is nothing like the cold perfectionist I first knew. He's real, and he's letting me see it. Lucien finally spoke. "I think I know why you didn't come tonight. You thought I didn't want to be seen with you." She tensed slightly. "But that's not it. I just wanted time alone with you before everything gets more complicated. Because it will. People will find out." He looked down at her. "And I don't want that to hurt you." She looked up at him, her voice soft. "You mean hurt you? Or me?" He smiled faintly, not surprised. "You're the junior designer. I'm the boss. You tell me which of us gets torn apart first." She dropped her gaze, but he lifted her chin with gentle fingers. "You're not like the women I've known, Celine. You don't wear masks. You don't calculate. You just are." His voice lowered, more intimate. "Well, except for that interview you didn't tell me about." Her breath caught. "Lucien, Let me finish," he said gently. His fingers grazed her cheek, tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I like you. I mean really like you. Maybe I didn't notice soon enough, but once I did, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. I don't know what this is yet, but I know I want to find out." Her lips parted. He leaned closer, breath warm against her skin, until they met in a kiss that was slow, searching, electric. Celine melted into him as he deepened it, his arms sliding around her as if he couldn't hold her close enough. Her fingers tangled in his hair, and when she shifted to straddle him, her breath hitched, not from nerves this time, but want. He whispered her name against her throat before kissing the soft skin there, making her shiver. Clothes were shed with quiet urgency, wine forgotten on the table, the city outside irrelevant. He worshipped every inch of her like he was learning her by heart. Slow hands, soft gasps, the quiet hush of need unfolding into something deeper. They moved together in rhythm, breath and skin, and whispered names. And when it was over, she lay in his arms, warm and boneless, the steady beat of his heart beneath her cheek. Whatever tomorrow brought, tonight was theirs. Celine woke up wrapped in Lucien's arms, sunlight filtering through her apartment windows. For a moment, everything was perfect. His steady breathing, the warmth of his skin, the memory of whispered promises in the dark. "Good morning," he murmured against her hair, voice rough with sleep. She turned in his arms, studying his face in the golden light. "Hi." "No regrets?" he asked softly, fingers tracing her cheek. "None," she whispered, meaning it completely. They shared coffee and quiet conversation before getting ready for work. Lucien had brought a spare shirt. "Always prepared," he said, with that almost smile she was learning to love. "I have to leave for Milan this afternoon," he said as they rode to work together. 3 days, fabric suppliers, and a meeting with Italian buyers. "Business trip?" "The most boring kind," he caught her hand briefly. "But when I get back, we'll figure this out properly. Us." Celine's heart fluttered. "Us." "Us," he confirmed, squeezing her fingers before letting go as their car approached the Wexley building. The other day, Celine was reviewing fabric samples when she heard familiar laughter echoing from the lobby, rich, confident, the kind of laugh that commanded attention. She looked up to see a vision of perfection gliding through the office, tall, elegant, with the kind of golden blonde hair that belonged in shampoo commercials. The woman wore a cream-colored designer coat that probably cost more than Celine's monthly rent, and she moved with the fluid confidence of someone who'd never questioned her place in the world. "Sophia, darling." Camille's voice carried across the space, warm and welcoming in a way Celine had never heard before. Sophia Sterling. Even before the introduction, Celine knew. There was something about her, the way she carried herself, the way people automatically made space for her, that screamed wealth, breeding, everything Celine wasn't. Jamie appeared beside Celine's desk, coffee in hand and eyes wide. "Who is that goddess?" she whispered. Before Celine could answer, Chad materialized with his usual dramatic flair, but his expression was unusually tense. "Ladies," he said quietly, "we need to discuss something. Conference room, now." They followed him to an empty meeting space where Chad closed the door and turned to face them with uncharacteristic seriousness. "That," he said, gesturing toward the lobby, "is Sophia Sterling. And according to Camille, she's here to meet with Lucienne about their engagement." The words hit Celine like a physical blow. "What?" "Engagement," Chad repeated, his voice flat, as in wedding bells, white dresses, and the merger of two fashion empires. Jamie's coffee cup hit the table with a clink. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. Camille just spent 10 minutes gushing about how perfect they are together, how long their families have been planning this, how excited she is to finally make it official." Celine felt the room spinning. "But that's impossible. Last night, Lucien and I—" She stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Chad's expression softened with something like sympathy. "Honey, what happened last night? We had dinner, we talked, and—" She couldn't say it. Couldn't admit that she'd given herself completely to a man who was apparently engaged to someone else. "Oh no," Jamie breathed. "Celine, you didn't—" "I need to know more," Celine said quickly, standing up. "Chad, what exactly did Camille say?" Chad sighed. "She said Sophia is here for the engagement announcement, that the families have been planning this alliance for months, that it's time to make things official before the fall show." "But," Lucien never mentioned. Lucien doesn't mention a lot of things, Chad interrupted gently. You know how he is about personal information. Celine sank back into her chair, the pieces clicking into horrible place. The Sterling job offer? Sophia Sterling. The same family. Had this all been planned? Had she been some kind of distraction while Lucien worked out his real future? Celine was trying to lose herself in design work when Camille's voice rang out across the office. Celine, darling, could you come here for a moment? Her stomach churned, but she stood and walked toward where Camille stood with Sophia Sterling. Up close, the woman was even more stunning, porcelain skin, cornflower blue eyes, and the kind of effortless sophistication that came from a lifetime of privilege. Celine, I'd like you to meet Sophia Sterling, Camille said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Sophia, this is Celine Taylor, one of our junior designers. Oh! Sophia's face lit up with genuine warmth. You're the one who designed the men's collection. I've heard so much about your work. It's absolutely brilliant. The kindness in her voice made everything worse. Celine had been prepared to hate this woman, but Sophia seemed genuinely lovely. Thank you, Celine managed. That's very kind. Sophia has just returned from Paris, Camille continued, smoothly. She's been working on her own design projects there, but now that she and Lucien are engaged, she'll be spending much more time in New York. The word engaged hit like a sledgehammer. Celine felt her professional smile freeze on her face. Congratulations, she whispered. Sophia blushed prettily. Thank you. We're both so excited. It's been a long time coming, really. Our families have been hoping for this for years. Years, Celine repeated numbly. Since we were children, practically, Sophia laughed, though it took us both a while to realize what everyone else could see. Sometimes the perfect match is right in front of you. Camille's smile was triumphant. Indeed. Sometimes it just takes time for people to see clearly. Celine knocked on Chad's door, her hands shaking. I need to know everything, she said without preamble, about Sophia, about their history. Chad looked up, one eyebrow raised. Well, hello to you too. And why do you need the Sterling family biography? Chad, please, I need to understand. Understand what? Why you look like someone just told you Santa was a tax evader. Celine's composure cracked. It's complicated. Oh, honey, Chad said with a knowing smile, the best stories always are. Take a seat. Chad leaned forward. The Wexleys and Sterlings have been family friends for decades. Sophia and Lucien dated on and off through their 20s. Very on and off. What kind of on and off? He'd date her for months, then disappear to Europe. Come back, try again, same pattern. Camille always said he was being stubborn about what was obviously meant to be. Celine felt sick. And now? Now he's 35, she's 30, and both families are getting impatient. The business has been struggling, and a Sterling alliance would solve a lot of problems. Business alliance, Celine repeated. That's how these families work, honey. Love is lovely, but money is survival. Celine's phone buzzed. Lucien's name. She stared until it stopped, then buzzed again. Aren't you going to answer? Chad asked. Celine turned off her phone. No, I don't think I am. Chad sighed. Yes, they have history. But honey, I've never seen Lucien look at anyone the way he looks at you. Then why didn't he tell me about her? Because he probably thought it was over. Done. He's terrible at explaining feelings, assumes people understand things he's never said out loud. According to Camille, who, let's be honest, has been planning this wedding since before you were born. That doesn't mean Lucien agreed to it. Celine looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. Then why is she here? Why is she talking about engagement announcements? Chad's expression grew troubled. I don't know, but I think you need to talk to him. He's in Milan. He has a phone. Celine shook her head. I can't, not yet, I need to think. That evening at Celine's apartment, Jamie found Celine on her couch, still in work clothes, staring at the flowers Lucienne had brought. "Have you eaten anything?" Jamie asked. "I can't," Celine said quietly. "Every time I try, I think about how stupid I was to believe it was real." "You weren't stupid." His fiancée, Jamie, his childhood sweetheart, who offered me a job at her family's company. The whole thing was probably orchestrated. Jamie sat beside her. "You don't know that, don't I? The sterling job offer comes right when things develop between us. His mother arranges for Sophia to visit while he's away. This screams manipulation. So what are you going to do?" Celine picked up one of the white lilies, its petals wilting. "I'm going to finish the collection," she said quietly. "Do my job, and pretend last night never happened." "And Lucien?" "Lucien can live with his choices, just like I have to live with mine." Her phone lit up across the room. Lucien's name, flashing. Celine didn't even look at it. That night, Lucien sat in his hotel suite overlooking the Duomo di Milano, his phone in his hand showing 15 missed calls to Selene. The fabric meetings had run late, but not this late. Something was wrong. He tried again, straight to voicemail. "Selene, it's me. I've been trying to reach you. Please call me back." Lucien stared at his phone, dread pooling in his stomach. He immediately dialed Chad. "Luce, thank God. You need to come home. Now." "What happened?" "Your mother happened with Sophia, and an engagement announcement that apparently everyone knew about except you and the actual bride." "What engagement?" "Camille told the entire office that you and Sophia are getting married. Sophia played along beautifully. Very convincing performance." Lucien's blood turned to ice. "Where's Celine?" "Devastating in the design studio. Her work performance has completely tanked. I'm about to have Camille breathing down my neck about productivity, and I swear to God, cousin or not, I will throw you under the bus to save my own career. Come home. Fix this, before your mother destroys the best thing that's happened to this company in years." That morning, Celine stared at her phone screen, nausea rising in her throat. At Fashion Insider on Instagram, breaking, Wexley-Sterling alliance, fashion royalty merger expected to reshape luxury market, engagement announcement imminent, at Power Couple, at Fashion Dynasty. The post had 300 comments already, photos of Lucien and Sophia from years past, speculation about wedding dates, analysis of what their combined empires would mean for the industry. Jamie appeared with coffee, took one look at Celine's face, and gently took the phone away. "Stop torturing yourself." 3 weeks until the show," Celine said quietly. "I need to focus." "You've been focused, you've been possessed, you've redesigned the same jacket 4 times. It wasn't right. It was perfect. You're spiraling." Celine looked up at her friend, eyes hollow. "I'm fine. I'm professional. I'm finishing the collection." "And then?" "Then I'm going to San Francisco. Another fashion house offered me the head designer position again yesterday. I accepted." Jamie's face fell. "Celine, don't. Please, I can't stay here and watch him marry someone else. I won't be the other woman, and I won't be a consolation prize." Lucien arrived at the office at 7 a.m., hoping to catch Selene before anyone else arrived. But her studio was empty, her desk organized with the precision of someone who'd left nothing to chance. Chad appeared with coffee and a grim expression. "She's been working 16-hour days since Wednesday. Jamie practically has to force-feed her lunch, and before you ask, she's not talking about it." "Where is she now?" "Fabric District, with Jamie, getting last-minute materials for final adjustments." Lucien ran a hand through his hair. "Has my mother been back?" "Oh yes, yesterday, with Sophia. They toured the executive floor like they were planning a royal wedding. Camille showed her the family portraits, talked about when she's officially part of the family." "And Celine?" "Watched the whole thing from her office, then worked until midnight. Selene was pinning adjustments to a charcoal jacket when she heard the door close behind her. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. She'd developed an internal radar for Lucien's presence. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "I'm busy." She didn't look up from her work. "Selene, please." "Please what?" She finally turned, her expression carefully blank. "Congratulations, by the way. Sophia seems lovely." Lucien stepped closer. "That's not real? Official? Because your mother seems to think otherwise. The entire fashion industry seems to think otherwise. My mother arranged that without my knowledge. It doesn't matter." Celine's voice was steady, professional, cold. "I was confused that night. We both were. It was just one night. It didn't mean anything." The lie tasted like ash in her mouth, but she delivered it with the conviction of someone protecting herself. "That's not true," Lucien said quietly. "Isn't it?" She picked up her pins again, focusing on the jacket. "Look, I think I got caught up in some fantasy, but the reality is you have a life, a path, someone who actually fits into your world." "And you don't?" Celine's hands stilled on the fabric. "I'm a small-town girl who got lucky with one collection. Sophia Sterling is everything I'm not. Sophisticated, connected, from your world. I understand. You don't understand anything. I understand enough." She finally met his eyes, and he saw something there that made his chest ache, not anger, resignation. "I don't have feelings for you, Lucien. Not the way I thought I did. And honestly, after the collection launches, I'm moving to San Francisco. Another fashion house offered me a position." Lucien felt like he'd been punched. "You're leaving?" "I'm advancing my career. There's nothing for me here." The words hung between them like a verdict. Lucien studied her face, looking for a crack in the armor, some sign that she didn't mean it. But Celine had spent days perfecting this performance. She looked calm, professional, completely convincing. "I see," he said finally. "Then I won't keep you from your work." He turned and walked away, leaving Celine alone with her lies and her breaking heart. Chad found Lucien staring out the window of his office, his expression unreadable. "So," Chad said, settling into the chair across from him, "what's the plan? Are you actually going through with this engagement circus, or are we staging a dramatic rebellion?" "There is no engagement," Lucien said quietly. "Tell that to the fashion blogs. Tell that to your mother. Tell that to Sophia, who's been planning color schemes for the engagement party." Lucien turned from the window. "What did you just say?" "Engagement party. This weekend. Didn't you get the invitation? Very exclusive, very elegant, very official. She can't, she can, and she has. Invitations went out yesterday. The Times is planning to cover it. This isn't a rumor anymore, Luce. This is a fait accompli." Lucien's jaw tightened. "Then I guess it's time to handle things my way." "And what way is that?" "You'll see." Chad studied his cousin's face, recognizing the stubborn set of his jaw, the dangerous quiet in his voice. "Just try not to burn down the entire fashion industry in the process, okay? Some of us still need jobs." Lucien almost smiled. "I'll do my best." But his eyes held the look of a man who'd been pushed too far and was finally ready to push back. The next morning, Chad burst into Lucien's office clutching a portfolio, excitement radiating from every pore. "Luce, you need to see this, right now." Lucien looked up. "What's got you so—" "I was reviewing Celine's final sketches and found these mixed in with her files," Chad interrupted, spreading papers across the desk. He laid out a series of sketches that made Lucien's breath catch. Evening gowns, cocktail dresses, day wear. Each design was exquisite, bold yet elegant, contemporary but timeless. "Her haute couture collection," Lucien said quietly. "The one that got shelved when you assigned her the men's line." Chad's voice rose. Lucien, these are extraordinary. The best designs I've seen from this company in years. Lucien studied each sketch with growing amazement. The attention to detail, the innovative silhouettes. This wasn't just talent, this was genius. Why didn't she show these to us? Because you gave her 12 days to create an entire men's collection. She buried her own work to deliver what you asked for. Chad's voice softened. She chose your deadline over her dream project. Lucien felt something twist in his chest. We have to add these to the show, he said suddenly. Chad blinked. What? The fashion show. 2 weeks from now. Make it a dual showcase, menswear and women's evening wear. Lucien, the logistics alone will make it work. These designs deserve to be seen. Chad studied his cousin's face, seeing pure excitement about the creative process. This is about more than the designs, isn't it? Lucien met his eyes. Everything about Celine is extraordinary. Just start making calls, Chad. We have 2 weeks to pull off a miracle. While Chad coordinated the production nightmare, Lucien reviewed the Milan documents. The Rossetti Designs partnership was finalized, 25% stake in exchange for European expansion and casual wear distribution. The numbers were perfect. No cash flow problems. International growth potential. He didn't need a marriage alliance. He didn't need manipulation. He had what every fashion house needed, extraordinary talent and smart partnerships. His phone buzzed. Bruno Rossetti, excited to work with the genius behind that men's collection. When do I meet this Celine Taylor? Lucien smiled. If only Bruno knew Celine was about to revolutionize women's evening wear too. Lucien found his mother reviewing engagement party seating charts. We need to talk, he said, closing the door. Perfect timing. I was finalizing the guest list. There's not going to be an engagement party. The engagement is off. Her pen stilled. Excuse me? I found the financing we need, Rossetti partnership. We don't need the Sterling alliance. Camille stood, composure cracking. This is about her, isn't it? That little small-town designer. This is about me taking control of my own life. And my own company. Lucien moved toward the door. The fashion show is in 2 weeks. We're showcasing both collections, men's and Celine's haute couture. It's going to be extraordinary. Lucien, your involvement in company creative decisions is over, Mother. He left her surrounded by the remnants of her carefully orchestrated plans, walking toward a future he was finally ready to claim. Lucien stood in the doorway of the design studio, watching Celine work. She was completely absorbed in adjusting the drape on one of her evening gowns, her brow furrowed in concentration as she pinned and repositioned fabric with the precision of a surgeon. She'd lost weight over the past 2 weeks. Stress, probably, or not eating properly while throwing herself into work. But there was something else different about her. A quiet strength, a professional confidence that hadn't been there before. She was still the woman who'd danced with mannequins, but she was also someone who'd survived having her heart broken and channeled that pain into creating something beautiful. It's going to be extraordinary, he said quietly. Celine startled, turning to find him watching her. For a moment, their eyes met, and he saw a flicker of the woman who'd fallen asleep in his arms just weeks ago. Then, the professional mask slipped back into place. The collection will be ready on time, she said simply. I know it will. He paused. Celine, I should get back to work, she said, turning away from him. The seamstresses are waiting for final adjustments. Lucien nodded, even though she couldn't see him. Of course. As he walked away, he made himself a promise. In 2 weeks, at the fashion show, he was going to fix everything he'd broken, starting with showing the world exactly how extraordinary Celine Taylor really was. The evening of the show, Soho Contemporary Gallery. The venue buzzed with Fashion Week energy. Cameras flashed, industry elite mingled with champagne, and anticipation filled the air for what had been billed as the dual collection that will define luxury fashion's future. Backstage, amid controlled chaos, Celine stood before a mirror, barely recognizing herself. The dress was her own design, deep emerald silk that flowed like water, with a neckline both elegant and daring. Her hair fell in soft waves, makeup flawless but understated. She looked like someone who belonged in this world. Finally. "Bestie," Jamie breathed, appearing beside her. "You look like a goddess." "I designed it in 3 days," Celine said, smoothing the silk. "Probably insane, but necessary. Tonight, you're not just the designer, you're the star." Across the backstage area, Celine caught sight of Lucien speaking with the production team. Even in chaos, he commanded attention, impeccable in midnight blue that made his grey eyes look silver. Their eyes met across the space. He started walking toward her, but Marco appeared at her side. "Celine, Bella," Marco said warmly, "you look absolutely stunning. This collection will change everything for you." He stepped closer, hand finding her waist. "Perhaps we could celebrate afterward? Just the two of us." Before Celine could respond, Lucien's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Marco." The warning was unmistakable. "Remove your hands off Celine and get ready for your entrance, now." Marco's smile faltered as he immediately dropped his hands from Celine's waist, stepping back. "Of course. Celine, break a leg tonight." As he left, Lucien moved closer, jaw tight. "Celine, we need to talk after." "Places, everyone," the stage manager called. "Men's collection opens in 5. The show was a revelation. The men's collection earned enthusiastic applause, buyers already placing orders. But when the first women's piece appeared, the midnight blue cocktail dress, the energy shifted entirely. The haute couture collection was extraordinary. Each gown told a story, pushed boundaries while maintaining timeless elegance. The audience was on their feet before the finale. Backstage, Chad was vibrating with excitement, phone buzzing with orders. "The response is insane," he called to Camille and Lucien. "Buyers from Tokyo, London, Milan, everyone wants exclusive deals." Camille's expression mixed shock with grudging admiration. "Unprecedented. This changes everything," Chad breathed. "Celine just became the most sought-after designer in the industry." As the final model exited and applause filled the venue, the stage manager gestured for Celine to take her bow. She stepped onto the runway, and the response was electric. The standing ovation seemed to go on forever, cameras flashing, industry professionals calling out congratulations. She looked radiant under the lights, confident, beautiful, belonging entirely to this moment she'd worked so hard to achieve. Then Lucien joined her on stage, taking the microphone from the announcer. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice carried clearly over the sound system, "what you've witnessed tonight represents the future of Wexley Fashion House. This extraordinary collection, both the menswear and the women's haute couture line, was designed by Celine Taylor." More applause erupted, but Lucien raised his hand for quiet. "Tonight, you've seen the work of someone who doesn't just design clothes, she creates dreams. Celine Taylor represents everything Wexley Fashion House aspires to be. Tonight marks a new chapter for Wexley Fashion House." He turned to look at Celine, his eyes holding hers. "But more than that, this success belongs to the woman who has captured not only the fashion world's attention, but my heart. Celine Taylor is not just our most valuable designer. She's my future wife." He turned to Celine, taking her hand in his as gasps rippled through the audience. Before she could process what was happening, before she could even breathe, Lucien cupped her face and kissed her deeply, passionately, right there on stage. The crowd erupted, cameras flashed like lightning. The kiss was bold, claiming and utterly unexpected, a declaration that left no doubt about his intentions. When they finally broke apart, Celine was breathless, her lips swollen, her emerald dress shimmering under the lights as she stared at him in shock. The audience was on their feet, applauding not just the collection, but the love story they'd just witnessed. Our engagement will be announced officially in 2 weeks, Lucien continued, his arm tightening around her waist, when she becomes not just a part of our design team, but a part of our family. The crowd erupted in surprise and delight, cameras flashing frantically as the fashion world witnessed an unexpected royal engagement. As they walked off stage together, Celine's shock transformed into fury. The moment they reached the quiet backstage area, away from the celebrating crowd, she turned on him. "How dare you?" she hissed, keeping her voice low but furious. "How dare you make an announcement like that without even asking me?" Lucien turned to face her, completely calm despite her obvious anger. His grey eyes were steady, unrepentant. "Because you're mine, Celine," he said quietly, his voice carrying absolute certainty. "And I'm not letting you go anywhere." "I already accepted the San Francisco position," Celine said, crossing her arms defensively. "I called and cancelled it," Lucien said simply, running his hand through his dark hair in that familiar gesture. Celine's hand flew to her mouth. "You did what?" "I told them you'd accepted a better offer," he continued, stepping closer with that confident stride. "A partnership position with a major fashion house, with your name on the company and creative control over your own lines." Celine stared at him, speechless, her hand still pressed against her lips in shock. "Wexley Taylor Fashion House," Lucien continued, stepping closer. "Equal partners. Your designs, your vision, your name, right alongside mine. Everything you've ever wanted. You can't just decide my life for me. I'm not deciding anything. I'm offering you everything. The question is whether you're brave enough to take it." Before she could respond, he cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. Not gently, not tentatively, but with months of suppressed longing and the certainty of a man who had finally figured out what mattered most. After a moment of resistance, Celine melted into him, her hands fisting in his jacket as she kissed him back with equal hunger. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she looked up at him with eyes that were no longer angry. "You're impossible," she whispered. "I'm persistent," he corrected. "There's a difference. And arrogant. Confident, also different." Despite herself, Celine smiled. "And what makes you think I want to marry you?" "Because you love me," he said simply. "Just like I love you. And because we're extraordinary together. You realize," Celine said softly, her forehead resting against his, "that I'm going to make your life very complicated." Lucien smirked. "Promise?" She laughed, the sound light and genuine for the first time in weeks, her fingers playing with his tie. "I'm serious, Lucien. I'm not going to become some corporate wife. I have opinions. I'll probably disagree with you. A lot." "I'm counting on it," he murmured, his thumb tracing her jawline. "And I want creative control. Real control, not just pretty titles," she said, poking his chest for emphasis. "Done." He caught her hand and kissed her fingertips. "And I want to expand into accessible luxury, not just haute couture, real clothes for real women." "Whatever you want," he said, pulling her closer. Celine pulled back to study his face, her hands framing his cheeks. "Just like that?" "Celine," Lucien said seriously, "you just proved that your vision can save this company. Why would I want to change anything about how you work?" Before she could respond, Camille appeared, elegant as always, but with something softer in her expression than Celine had ever seen before. "Congratulations," Camille said, her French accent making the words sound like music. "Both of you. Tonight was extraordinary." She turned to Celine specifically. "I owe you an apology, and perhaps a welcome to the family." Celine blinked in surprise. "Mrs. Wexley." "Camille," she corrected with a small smile. "I think we're past formalities now. You've proven that talent and vision matter more than breeding or connections. That's a lesson I needed to learn." She kissed Celine's cheeks in the traditional French manner, then did the same to Lucien. "Now," she said, her business demeanor returning. We have buyers to charm and orders to finalize. The real work begins now. As she walked away, Selina turned to Lucian with wonder in her eyes. Did your mother just approve of me? She just witnessed you single-handedly revolutionize our industry. Even my mother isn't stubborn enough to argue with that level of success. So, Celine said, a smile playing at her lips, equal partners in everything. Your name and my name on the company? Wexley Taylor Fashion House has a nice ring to it. Celine stood on her tiptoes and kissed him softly. In that case, Lucian Wexley, I accept your proposal. Which one? The business partnership or the marriage? Both, she said, grinning. Definitely both. As celebrations swirled around them and the fashion world buzzed with news of the night's triumph, Celine Taylor, soon to be Celine Wexley Taylor, realized that sometimes the best happy endings were the ones you built yourself, with your own talent, your own vision, and the rare man, brave enough to see you as an equal partner in every possible way. Thank you for staying till the end. Where in the world are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel, and if this story moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe. It means the world to me.